Well, my name is Chris Verhel. I'm a northern Minnesota guy. I got into the AI field kind of in the beginning and understanding, kind of utilizing it for personal business and so on, and then started realizing the potential of utilizing experts' AI models to build programs and build ways for businesses to be more efficient and so on. So I started in the tech world back in 2000, right out of high school, back when Windows NT was a thing, and slowly worked through my career as a computer geek. And I worked in law enforcement where I did forensics investigations in computers and stuff. So I kind of kept my tech knowledge going throughout my career. Ultimately, retiring from law enforcement and moving on to entrepreneurship and kind of into the tech world with AI. So I have a tech background. I understand tech. I understand how it works. So it's one of those things that I enjoy solving problems utilizing tech. So
So how do you know Cody?
through actually through the ambassador program, I inquired about getting into the ambassador program, and I'm a person that likes to offer help, and I understand X is a great company that helps out the motor sports industry, and I offered to help in any way that I could with the knowledge that I had, with bringing in leads in different ways to help grow the company so it can be a part of the sports that I enjoy the most. And doing that, I just basically asked, how can I help, with the knowledge I have? And that's how Cody and I got into the conversations with AI and lead generation and things like that.
Cody says he rides motorcycles. I've yet to see it actually happen, but he talks about it a lot. I saw him golf. He talked about that a lot too, and he golfed right-handed the first time and left-handed the second time. So I'm not sure which way's better.
Yep, I'm with you. Well, the AI does generate revenue, but it doesn't do it in a way that a lot of people know it. A lot of people look at AI and they look at the $20 monthly fee that they pay to be a pro owner of an AI, and that's what most small businesses do. They use ChatGTP or Gronk or Claude to answer questions, to maybe fix small problems or give advice and so on. That's really not the development side of AI. When you get into the development side where you're building agents and you're building what I call AI factories to complete tasks or improve processes, you're not building a one-man operation. You're building a corporation structure. In my AI models that I do, I have a factory that I'm the CEO. I have an executive assistant that's a very smart AI model, but not an expert in every field. And then it goes down with the agents that I build in that. Now, when you're utilizing AI in that type of model, it does cost to send requests and to receive them, especially when you're building stuff. And that's where companies like Anthropic or OpenAI and stuff like that make their money, is because when I go in and ask ChatGPT how to do something, it gives me a simple answer, usually the right answer, and it doesn't cost me anything. But when I go into Claude and I tell Claude to develop me a program where it's going to take, for example, a program that I just finished was 28 hours of AI creating code and fact checking and everything else, that costs money. They don't just allow you to do that for the $20. So in the realm, when you look at new AI models that come out, like the one that Anthropic just released, if I was to run the program build that I did that ran 28 hours on that new model, it would cost a fortune. It would be very expensive and so on, because I'm paying for utilizing their GPUs, their services. So that's kind of where there's that line between people understanding that $20 gives me a pro license and developers going, you know what, I understand that the cost to build this program might cost $2,000 or $3,000 or $20,000, depending on how big the program is. So,
I mean, I think everybody doesn't want to be left behind, right? They want to think that this is the solution to it all. And, you know, we got involved with autonomous driving trucks and cars, and everybody thinks that's going to solve the problem. They still get in wrecks. They still get in accidents. So, you know, I think it's not the solution people think it is. And, you know, running a financial institution, the regulators make you have systems in place, and they test you. They hire outside organizations to try and, you know, hack you and get into you and take sensitive information, which the only, you know, again, any information in any claims file or any underwriting file, it's just information that's available, right? It's not like protecting credit cards and financial information, social security number. Those are the, you know, things that everybody's worried about, and I don't really need those numbers or information. So, you know, I think that as far as running an insurance company, where I've been, you know, internet bubble and very regulated, the internet wasn't all it was cracked up to be. And if you're on the front edge of the wave, right, and things are moving, I mean, they move fast then, but with AI, I think they're moving at light speed now. So how do you invest in something where you're leading the edge, and, you know, you're always going to have to be making big turns as new technology comes in. So, you know, I think most people try and float somewhere back behind the leading edge and have a very stable system, because I have to, right? Regulators and auditors. So, you know, I love AI. I can go in and, you know, there's legal questions you can ask it. I mean, you go to 10 lawyers if you can get appointments with them, and you can get a legal opinion after like weeks and weeks and weeks and a lot of money. AI gives it to you in like 5 seconds. The truth is, you know, AI is not always going to be right. And no lawyer's always right either. You go to 10 lawyers, you're going to get a little bit different spin from each one on each case, and based on what they know. So, you know, I want to use AI, but I think it's a lot harder to implement. You know, overall, I think you could have it do certain things, like maybe enter submissions, or, you know, initially respond to submissions, set stuff up. But again, then you're going out to hire people, and it's not free. Those people that are going to build your programmer model with AI, you know, they're going to want to evolve it and change it, and it's almost like a lawyer. Does the job ever end, right? After you've been involved, the goal of every lawsuit or divorce is for it to actually end, right? Oh yeah, keep her going. You know, I think your husband's hiding money. I think that's the favorite statement.
so here's what I'll say when it comes to confidential data and things like that. If you look at the companies that implement AI models into their corporations, they're not going out and putting information into ChatGTP and some of the other AI public AI models. What they're doing is they're having people or persons come in and build the AI system within the company and keeping the information local to protected servers. And that's one of the things that a lot of the general public doesn't realize, is that companies aren't utilizing, you know, these public AI models. They're building their own, and they're specializing the agents to do tasks for that company based on what the company's policies, procedures, laws, and stuff are. So when you talk about client attorney privilege, or you talk about confidential information, if your company doesn't have a policy when it comes to the use of AI, then basically you're allowing your company to provide the world with information, and it's all somebody has to do is look hard enough and they'll find it. What major corporations are doing, like I said, is that they're building these internal models that never get out to the public and they stay behind secure
Oh,
walls.
I think what you're saying in my mind is that, we use it and it's Claude or whatever, and it's
Hmm.
out there.
Yep.
Companies buy some AI like Claude or whatever, and they run it on their own system, and it's not
Hmm.
going outside, and it's not part of the public domain
Yes.
now, right?
Yes, that is correct. And yes. And part of the reason why that's a big concern, in my opinion, is the fact that we don't have structured laws against what AI can do and what it shouldn't be able to do. Right now, it's an arms race. Everybody's trying to build the biggest, the baddest, the fastest AI to be able to do processes in seconds. And there's no regulation or anybody, pumping the brakes a little bit, going, "Hey, you know what? We need to educate law firms. We need to educate private dental offices and doctors and stuff like that on what they should do." A lot of people think that when they put, and this was a Sam Altman talked about this, that people tell ChatGTP the most personal things, and that's all going to a server, and ChatGTP is building a profile about that person based on the things that they talk about, and that's public.
But
That's
the internet's done that too. Like, how do I kill my wife? And
yeah.
the record's there, right? Like, well, I thought about it. I didn't do it.
Yeah.
Okay, I just
My
thought
law enforcement background says just forget that comment.
but I do know that legally there's cases where the lawyers have used it and it's backfired on them, where now it is discoverable and their client relationship changes. And
Hmm.
so it's I mean, it's like everything else. It's a tool. I think everybody wants to think it's going to take over the world. And in my business, I always tell everybody, look, when you're getting sued, you have to show up. You have to go to court, and that's
Hmm.
the new world. Everybody wants to do business on social media, and to me, it's very impersonal, and people can lie, cheat, steal. It's like, people say stuff online they would never say to your face, type of thing. And I
Hmm.
do think that, from my perspective as an underwriter, people who don't want to show up or actually talk on a phone or get on a Zoom call, they want to be mysterious. That's scary to me, right?
Hmm.
And that's a new risk that, as people, I had a client that one of our risk managers was going to go see, right? And we do that regularly. We're going to go see him. And he refused, and then months later we've canceled him. He's calling me and he's trying to polish the turd and explain, why, this was uncomfortable. Why she wanted to come to my home. And I'm like, well, we don't know it's your home. You put it as your business address. So when she called you, you could have just said, "Hey, it's my house. We're virtual. I'll meet you anywhere you want, but I don't do it at my house." Okay. And then as he keeps talking, and that's why meeting people and talking with people is important. There's little tidbits that come out that he can't handle the pressure of personal meetings. I have PTSD from my former job as a police officer, and this is very uncomfortable for me. And my brain's like, well, if he gets frivolously sued, he is a perfect target for a lawyer. Because when you say, I'm going to depose your client, guess what he's going to do? He's going to shit his pants,
Hmm.
and he's going to start telling me to settle some frivolous lawsuit. So, you know your client is a rule, federal law, actually, in financial services. You shouldn't be taking money from a criminal that's getting it from, sources he shouldn't be getting it from, and helping him break the law. And, I think that all of this has a lot of, just a lot of ramifications that people haven't thought about. Like you said, it's the Wild West, but it's the Wild West, like, on steroids. It's going so fast. And, I can't believe all of these data centers. Everybody now builds data centers. Every
Yep.
contractor I meet, builds data centers, and they got more money than anybody I know, all over the place. And to me, I say it feels like 2008, the mortgage crisis. I think, it's just, there's too much hype and too much, polish, and it's great, it's exciting, but, can you burn all of this money? And so, the one question I had, what you said earlier, so if you buy this system in-house and you hire, I don't know how many IT guys I got to run my system, but, we build our own system, and obviously a lot of people think it's good, some people think it's crappy, and, I know it's very stable and it's impressive to auditors and reinsurers when they come in because all the information's in one place. Most insurance products you buy are like an agency, an MGA, a TPA, a risk, and all of those systems having to communicate. When I started as an agent, billing retail, and became a wholesaler and an MGA and a TPA and then an insurance company. So my system does everything. I'm sure it's not the best system, but, having spent some money building Power BI, which is a Microsoft, I guess, product, all it does is move everything around, which, isn't helpful when you're trying to show, smooth, direct flight. So, and then we try and tweak it, and it just gives out more numbers. So, I just go back to what I know that shows my real constant trend instead of all these moving numbers because you're making all kinds of adjustments. So, but AI costs, and the thing about IT, I told my guy JD, who I love and trust, he's worked for me forever, but his goals are like an accountant's goals, right? And I'm not an accountant either. And so my, experience over time, the accountants, as long as things line up, they're happy. Right? You got it in both columns. And I'm like, well, this column is growing. It's 90-day receivables. What we should have done was we should have canceled them before they got there. Well, that's their job. Right? And so I'm like, well, no, it's actually both our job, and we would be a lot better off had we not written all this premium we can't collect. And or deductibles or collateral or whatever. Accountants really don't care about that as much as I do as a business owner. That's what I told him. I'm like, dude, this is like, would you do this in your bank account? Would you let this receivable grow? But if it's your money, hell no, you wouldn't do that. And again, Brent, I love, and he's overworked, and we've done a great job of growing it. But he has a huge department, as does my IT, and like lawyers, they can make jobs as big as they need to be. Right? You can take a 2-hour job and make it a 3-year job in litigation. And I don't believe lawyers are going to do that, take money out of their own pocket. Hey, look, you should just pay this now. It's more than we want to pay, but it's cheaper to do it in the long run, which is how everything got out of control. There's majority of lawsuits I deal with, you have to fight because it's not cheaper to pay and get sued more. It's cheaper to win, costs you more to win, but in the long run, like Remington Firearms and a lot of these companies, you don't go bankrupt because, your insurance premiums change too much. So, how does a layman like me know that, okay, I'm going to pay for this chat GBT in-house and, it's now going to do stuff that programmers or other IT people take a long time to do, right? And how does it do it? And then how do you merge the two to actually get to a better place than just keep adding more people, which, over time, computers and everything, I would say the efficiencies have never actually dropped to the customer, right? Like in the insurance business, most agents and brokers like Aon used to own an insurance company. Well, if I can get paid more and more fees all the time, and over the years the cost of distribution has gone up, not down with IT, they sold their own insurance companies. Because it's like, why would I take risk when I could move to this side of the table and I can get double the fees by demanding them because I'm big and I can demand it? I think that has, now switched. I think with all the big brokers with their investment dollars, they're big and fat and they can't get out now. They're trapped. Assured Partners sold to Gallagher, but that wasn't their choice. That was kind of the best option at the time. They had to do a deal. So, I see IT as kind of like insurance agents and brokers or AI because they really want to make all that money, right? It's like, oh, these 50 programmers, they never leave. Who makes all that money? So you get AI and it shrinks it, or are they actually going to let it shrink?
Yep. So real quick to kind of go back on, you made a comment about AI being a tool, and that's in the small business world, AI is a tool. It is a tool to help an owner, the small plumbing, the local plumbing shop that can't hire developers, can't hire IT staff, are going to utilize AI as a tool. It's a question and answer. It's an expert. When you look at a corporation like XINSURANCE or large corporations, they have to look at AI as another executive branch of the company. And when I say that, you're not hiring a team of people. You're hiring a person, a manager that basically creates efficiencies in processes that are deficient. So I don't look at AI as something I want to bring into a company and all of a sudden start cutting their IT staff or start cutting their underwriters or the people that do the work, because anybody that tells you that AI can be run autonomously and make decisions is steering you down the wrong direction for a lot of litigation. AI is a separate corporation of the company, if you think of it that way, where the manager is a CEO who builds a staff of agents. Now, these are AI agents, so these are agents that are expertises in law, in underwriting, in document preparations, all individuals. So when that happens, it's one person, but he's got the backing of 15 experts. So when you come up to me and you say, hey, we have a bottleneck in this process. And the bottleneck is the fact that we have to have human staff that read a 50-page document and go through everything line by line to make sure it's correct. I can create experts that can go through that document, 99% of it, and give a summary to the staff in a couple of minutes. So that way the staff can go, okay, let me go to that page and check out that and see what it says. Everything has to be checked by a human. So instead of cutting staff, you're making your staff more efficient. And there's two parts of AI used in a corporation setting, is that in a business that relies on leads and lead generation and bringing in more clients, AI can smooth that out. It can do things to make it more efficient and bring in more clients. We all know that. The problem is if I go out there and I set my AI staff and I bring in 500 new clients in the next week, is your staff going to be able to handle that influx of clients? Chances are they won't. And you talked about how people don't want to talk to people over the phone and so on. On the internet, people have about a 15-second attention span before they move on to the next thing. So if I send an inquiry for an insurance policy and you guys don't get back to me for days or weeks, I'm going to eventually find a different policy. Now, if I set up a process that said, okay, the back end, we're going to make this more efficient and we're going to have AI going through and let's say putting a list of qualified that we can underwrite and a list of questionable, it needs human interaction. Now we have separate processes that are being done efficiently, and AI is basically giving you the summary of what it feels based on its whatever the expert agent said to go forward. So that's kind of the ways I like to look at is not we're not taking or putting AI in the position of people's jobs. We're trying to make their job more efficient to help the company grow and be able to handle more clients, more revenue, and so on.
I mean, I have a personal, thing going on right now with the way we take on quotes. Like
Mm-hmm.
everything comes down to how many apps we get in a day and how many can we process. And I've always said that it's like showing up at a national park, right? And the ranger's there, and it's like, dude, the gate's broken and the bathrooms don't work, and and they always look at you and say, yeah, we're undermanned. Get us more money and we can do all this. And to me, it's about you know first, do you get enough money, and are you getting the most efficiency out of the people you have because you actually know what's going on. I think that a lot of people don't actually know what's going on, and like I said earlier with IT and accounting, I have no clue what's going on. I'm dumb as a rock, right? I can barely get my smartphone to work properly, but underwriting and dealing with people and litigating, I've done every job. I know it, right? So let's say, a piece of business comes in from a wholesaler, right? He's sending it out to 20 markets. So, what we do as an industry is we become paper termites, right? An underwriter gets it on his desk and he's looking at everything, right? He's Googling it, AI, in the old days, loss runs. Oh, I need loss runs. I need updated loss runs. And it's all of this, what I call pretend work. There's no value in it, right? I was a Kirby vacuum salesman. I mean, I had an A ground. I had all kinds of stupid jobs, but I got good experience. And one thing I always remember about Kirby is they said, look, don't waste your time with the husband. He don't vacuum, right? You sell vacuums to the wife. They're the ones using the vacuum. So I want to get the buyer of insurance on the phone as an underwriter, right? That's before. I don't want to do anything until I have some knowledge of who the person is and what they want to do. So I want to eliminate all of this work that's done in the regular insurance world, right? We do it. We have some outsourced company put it in, they have a criteria, and they reject stuff that's not complete submissions. I'm like, dude, I just want to, you can do it on a napkin from the restaurant, like Lloyd's of London used to. Give me the guy's name, let me get it in the system, and then I want him to call me and tell me how I can be your insurance partner that you want. And then the game's on. Then I start gathering my information because I know I have a fish on the line. I know I have people in the insurance business that don't like me. They just send apps in just to waste my time. My
Mm-hmm.
people, you have this process that's like 50 years old, right? I need this, I need this. No, I don't need anything until I know that you're worth my time and investment. And so how do you change that process, right? I wish AI could do that first part. You just, you know, I call it getting it back across the net, right? It's tenant.
Hmm.
You send it to
Yep.
me. Okay. I'm doing as little as I can. I'm just making sure I get it back at you. And now it's your job to get the insured on the phone because that's when the opportunity starts.
And to kind of go off of what you said there, when you talk about you're paying a company to kind of get rid of your cold leads or your dead leads, and make your company more efficient, you're paying a company to do that. AI can take that in house and do it for you basically for free. It's your AI model. It's your AI that's weeding out based on what your requirements or your policies are. And that's the part about AI that I always tell people, because I get a lot of people asking me the craziest ideas, and we're at the point with AI that any idea that you have in your mind, whether it's a good one, bad one, a big one, a small one, generally we can create that and make it work. And that's one of the most rewarding things about AI is that I can go in and take somebody's imagination, instead of being one day, I turn it into day one. And that's the difference between having an in-house AI developer or manager, is that if you have a task that it needs to be more efficient or developed or completely redesigned, you have a team of experts that are sitting there 24/7 waiting for a command for you to tell them what to do. When I build a new app, I have my factory that literally I can put an idea in there, and my lead AI guy will actually ask me questions for clarification and start building the model and give me feedback if this is an idea that's going to be worthy and go forward with it, or if this is an idea that's going to crash and burn in a couple of months.
See, my idea is always, I hate outsourcing. I think that
Hmm.
um, I saw it as the old industry. They had underwriter, risk manager, lawyer all at the same desks right next to each other, and they all made a joint decision of what policies to write. Will we write this amusement park? Will we write this concrete truck company? And they underwrote the people and the future experience if they were to get sued or have a catastrophe. Can we work with these people? And to me, that's where people, you have to have them, and they have to be in house, and they have to have
Hmm.
the right partnership approach, and your partner has to be on the other side of that. And people who have had claims aren't as bad a risk as you think. The people who have never had a claim, they're the ones that are the scariest to me because they're going to panic, right? They're going to be unreasonable. They're not going to know what the game is, or what a good result is, what a bad result is. They're going to complain no matter what because it's their first experience.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of things that came to my mind there with first experiences that aren't as good as you thought they were going to be. But and again, I think that what just came to my mind, I don't want to go there. What I lost my mind there for a minute was, it's really about what are your requirements. That's what this outsourced service did, which you'll be surprised, but you shouldn't be to know that my old staff went around my back and did this because it's like, don't tell Rick, right?
Hmm.
And I find out I'm paying these people to do what, if it were me, which that's how I relate everything, I would be calling you why I'm putting it in my system. I don't need, like an executive who says, well, where's my assistant? Or do I get an assistant? I'm like, no, you don't get, I don't have an assistant. We hire people that actually do shit. We don't give executives a girl to sit at a desk and make reservations for you and order flowers for funerals and shit. No, that's not in the real world I live in. So
Yeah.
again, it's from right now. There's a list of requirements, right? And you make the requirements. I'm like, my only requirement is have the insured get on the phone with me or on a Zoom, right? And so you're taking this big list of requirements, which creates all this work, and you're moving it to the end instead of the beginning. I'm not beginning until I talk with my potential insured. And that, to me, it's so simple and so common sense. And it's frustrating that I can't get that. So I would like to see if I could get that, right? And start with a project of, let's look at what the outsource is doing. And again, we build the requirements. So how can we switch it to AI where the only requirement is have the insured get on the phone? So
Yep.
that would,
And
that would eliminate 50% of my workload, to be honest with you. And I would be, very happy with that, as would my staff. But I got to get them to change.
yep. And I hear exactly what you're saying. And in the AI model world, I would, if it was me building this factory for you, first off, I'm not gonna go in and try to rewrite your processes and how you do things. I'm gonna listen to your pain points, like the one you just told me, and go, okay, these are extremely important to Mr. Lindsey, and these are the things that he's a little bit more flexible on. And I'm gonna build an agent that replicates you. And what I mean by that is that when the AI factory is doing something or is doing what you want it to do, it's always going to have a model of the way you look at your company and the way you've built your company. So that way, then it's not just a new idea that gets put out there and it gets approved because AI looks at it as a plus, but in your mind, it's not a plus. It's something that needs to be reviewed based on your experience because, as you said, AI can make mistakes. Right. If it doesn't know definitively what its tasks are, it can make mistakes. And knowing that you have restrictions or you have, yep, this is a yes and this is a definite no, eliminates those mistakes because it knows that if this comes up, it's going to reject it or it's going to ask for more information. So it doesn't.
Yeah, the second step, pre-qualifying to me is get the insured on the phone. Then once you get the insured on the phone and we have our requirements of states, the limits, the variables, that's where underwriting can use it as a second step to, give you 80% of what you need in a lot quicker time than Google searching and doing it all on your own because it consolidates all this information. I use it myself, right? And again, I don't ever, I give it information about myself to test it. It's like, did I get arrested in Chicago? Yes. Did I get off? Yes. Did I sue and win? Yes. But I actually had to prompt it each question. Now I do it and it gives me the whole story. So that's either because it's learning or, it basically is getting better. It might just be learning from what I'm telling it, right?
Yep, that's exactly it. It is learning. Every time somebody, whether it's yourself or other people, input information into AI, it learns. And that doesn't just include public AIs. When you build a centralized AI system for your own company, the more you use it, the more it understands the way your company works and becomes more efficient.
But if you're having an internal struggle, like the people who want to do it the old way,
yep,
and the way I want to do it, how does AI deal with that? Right?
Well,
because it's getting bad information from the other side, maybe there's like an explosion that happens.
Ultimately, you're the boss, and that's the way AI looks at it, is that all the agents can give their expertise, but in the end, the boss agent, the CEO, is the one that's going to make the final decision when it comes to it based on policies and procedures.
That's how I think it should be already, but it isn't.
No, because it has to be built. It's a
Well, yeah,
structure.
dude, I've been saying this for 5 years, and it's like
Hmm.
you don't get to decide. We've made other decisions.
Yep.
I would say it's pretty flippin' organized, dude. Year by year, regulator proctologies, reinsurers proctology. I mean, can't you run it on a separate system so that it's not part? And that's where we did that was with the live stream, where my son was trying to do it through the company computer system or
Hmm.
pipeline or whatever. And
Yep. Yes, and again, I always want to reiterate that I'm not a person that wants to see job loss, and and that's a big thing. But I'll give you a prime example. When I was building, I built a very large program over the last couple of days for a client that has an absolute mess going on inside their business. And in doing that, there was different agents that were used on different AI models. And so there was public agents that were Claude, for example, that was used to use Claude's processing power. But if you look here, you can see my computer, okay? There's a GPU, it's a graphical interface that can process AI. So instead of of personal data or information, what I do is I run locally on my computer. Now, this is just a gaming built computer that has a lot of cool stuff on it. Now, when you talk about IT wanting to keep things in house, what we do is, for one, we build a processor that can handle the data crunching. So that means that the IT guys go out there and they buy the best GPUs or an AI built NVIDIA box. That's all it does is want to process AI information, AI tokens. That keeps everything in house, and then we take
so
models
we
that are
could
open
have our
source.
own mini data center with like
Yes,
on an acre.
in fact, I wouldn't. For a company like yours, that would be the only route I would go. You're not building a data center. You're building a computer that's a server, basically, that runs the AI models that you need to run your company. Those AI models are open source, and like I said, they learn with you and your company, but it stays right here. It's not going out on the internet. It's not being pushed anywhere where it's access to public, or where it's public can access it. Now, when it comes to data, we can create AI programs to look and say, okay, I'm going to give you a bunch of historical data that we want to see trends, whether it's yearly trends or monthly trends based on this criteria. That's where AI shines, as AI can take lots of data and churn it and put it into historical facts in minutes. Whereas it might take a developer, a software developer, or an IT guy months, if not years, to put all the information together and sort it out and so on. And that's a big advantage for companies that are converting over to AI type backends, is that they can take that historical data and find information that a human couldn't do. And it does it for the cost of basically having somebody there to make sure it's being done, and the power that it uses to power the server. You're not paying developers $150 an hour to compile this data and give you an output. AI is doing it 24/7 for free. And if you look at the technology that Nvidia is putting out right now, I mean, they're taking boxes like that are this size here, and they're making them, little square boxes that process 10 times the amount of data that this could do. And it really depends. Anywhere from a couple $1,000 all the way up to a couple $100,000. It all depends on the amount of data that needs to be processed. But here's the thing: is that your business doesn't need necessarily a $200,000 processor to do it. It might need a couple of smaller GPUs just to process the data, because that's the the development side is where data is where processors get bogged down when they're creating code or creating things that don't exist already. That's where things get bogged down. Versus if it's just looking at data and organizing it and changing it, it doesn't take a lot of processing power to do that, and it can do it in light speed.
So I would like to see if we could, start a project where we look at what this outsourced entity's doing and create an AI that could do the same thing, but kind of switch, instead of pre-qualify it, decline it, you basically say get the insured on the phone. If they don't, it's declined. And then if you talk to the insured, then we go into the next step, which is underwriting and finding ways for that to help give the underwriter a risk review and 80% of the work, and then the underwriter should focus on the final touches, right? It's highest and best use. And this is like gathering data. It's qualifying first, which is the only thing I want to qualify is I got a live person who's willing to talk on the phone, and I can see that, they're an idiot or a good person. Then if they're a good person, you go, the rest of the way and identify what the problems are and what we can solve. And I think the opportunity, I thought it was 100 million. I got close to a half a billion. I mean, I got guys, I don't need Corgi. They've invested in Uber, and they're in Silicon Valley, and they've started a risk retention group, and they're doing renters legal liability, called RLL. It's a guy in Salt Lake that I used to insure 10 years ago, and he doesn't understand the insurance business. He understands the distribution business. So these guys started this, and they've already grown to $160 million company in the matter of like 6 months, is what they said. But they're publicly traded, valued, and they want to be in the insurance business. And they're IT guys. That's all they do. So I know that whether we deal with them or not, I have to start doing some of this shit. While maintaining the system. So I think it would be interesting to, get you to Salt Lake, meet JD, wander around and see what you see, and, then we ought to talk about, can we do this replacement of the outsourced service by building, and it might be a separate, nothing to do with our computer. This intake part could be, I don't need JD. I don't need any of that. If he's, I got all these problems and this and that, and say, okay, we'll just do it separate, and we'll import it once we talk to the insured. There's a way to work around all these no's. Most people, they like saying no. I'm so sick of saying no. I'm like, look,
Yeah.
I know the lawyers have been telling me no, you can't win since 1985, and I've been proving them wrong since then, and they're not as smart as people think. So AI actually helps me, because when the lawyer, I say, look, this is my strategy, and it nailed it, and that information I took to my lawyers, I'm like, look, this is what I've been saying. They owed me this duty under a separate portion of the policy, but you're going with their argument that, they did it under this portion. I'm like, it's not my obligation to make sure they're handling their duties under the right portion of their policy. And then they sent me a check for 65 grand admitting that they had underpaid me under the wrong section of the policy. So this, this State Farm and big companies, you can't believe how stupid all this is. And it's
Yeah.
because everything's outsourced and nobody's interests are aligned. So doing it in-house, not outsourcing, making sure everybody has skin in the game. Insureds that have no skin in the game, they are totally different than insureds who get the big picture and, the opportunities. And even in a claim where you're negligent, you have the opportunity to do the right thing soon and get the PR benefit out of it rather than delay, which is why everybody hates insurance. Just do the right thing early. And, if you get sued frivolously, you got to have a thick skin. You don't want to hear from the insured. It's like, oh, Rick, I'm tired. It's been 3 years. And I'm like, yeah, lawyers know that over time you're going to get worn out. And, that's part of what we have to be strong at when they're suing us frivolously. If you were at fault, we should have paid day one, right? Weeks. And it really benches the lawyers and changes people's experience, which is what life's about, right? Good experience or bad experience. So I would like to see, whether you can help us with that or have somebody that can do this first piece, which is really the efficiency, because we're sucking up all this energy, digesting information we don't even need to know yet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, I 100% agree with that, and everything that you're talking about and saying are very possible. Outsourcing, I mean, if you look at it as everybody's in the arms race trying to build the product that signs X Insurance onto their company. Well, why have 10 different companies selling you products that you have to learn 10 different companies' builds and how processes work when you can build what you want and how you want it to work in house under your paycheck or your pay, not somebody else's dictated pay on what they're going to charge you, and that's what I see here is I see, the CEO agent of this AI factory is going to be a lot like Rick and being able to look at things the same way of 40 plus years of experience in the industry looks at it, not the way some developer that doesn't know anything about the insurance industry thinks that it should be done, and that's where in-house AI models become the pivotal point for companies to grow on because it doesn't forget anything. It keeps building and building and building. So it understands to the point where at some points it'll know that, yep, Mr. Lindsey would automatically reject this for these reasons, and then it would present that to whoever's taking that information in. That these are the reasons why he would reject it. Is there anything that we're missing?
You won't get on the phone. That's why I'm going to reject you.
Yep. No.
You want to hide.
But the thing is that if you look at the AI ability to get people on the phone, sometimes, you look at the younger generation, they like to text, AI has that ability to create that conversation and say, hey, the next part of this is getting a phone call. Are you comfortable with doing that? And there's no interaction with any of your staff that you're paying to do the actual work. AI is doing all that and taking care of it for you. So that way, then when your staff has the time, or not necessarily the time, but when that lead comes to them, they know that the conversation's been had to this point based on what your qualifications are. So it's definitely doable. I will never say something is not in the AI field. The honest truth, unfortunately, AI is going to take over employees, and it's not necessarily the employees that work in certain industries. It's going to be a lot of high level employees. Unfortunately, it's going to be code writers and developers and things like that. That unfortunately, to pay somebody to work for 8 or 9 months on a project versus have an AI create the project and have it done within a week, there's pluses there to companies, and it's a hard fact. I like to go off the fact of right now, we need to build systems that enable employees to be better at their jobs so that way the company can flourish more than when I show up to a company, they go, oh, the AI guy's here, hold on to your jobs. I would rather them going,
I would say that, where we don't outsource, it's going to make, people who actually interact with people and do important things, it's going to make them more job secure. A lawyer who sits there waiting for somebody to come in and say, hey, I need a lawyer, and he's like, give me $5,000 and I'll start researching it. I mean, that's not a lawyer you want to hire. You want to go to lawyers that when you walk in, they're kind of experts at what you do. And, they'll good ones will say, look, you need to settle this, right? You're liable. There's no fight here, and you're just going to make yourself look bad. But, so, again, lawyers is my best example because as you have a lawsuit or an idea, if you're in a wheelchair, all of them want you. If, it's some complicated thing, you really got to be good, and then they're going to want you to pay them. Most plaintiffs in wheelchairs get taken on contingency. So, I do think it'll obviously affect people who don't add a lot of value. But
yeah,
if you add value, AI should make you better and stronger. If I was your
yeah,
employee and I'm doing jobs, I would find a way to help me do more because that's what most people look at is how much do you do? How much do you produce? And again, lawyers is my best reference that I think they juice up everything.
If we look at AI, like in the beginning of our conversation today, you talked about nobody having assistants. Now, if we look at AI as being your assistant, but it's an expert in your position, your job. So when you need information or you need a process to be more efficient, you have an expert assistant that is with you all the time. And that's the part of AI, that is really nice when you talk about, how attorneys, they're hourly and they bill you for every email and every single thing that you can think about. Now, if you presented your attorney with all the discovery, all the facts and everything in a nice pamphlet and said, here, go ahead and litigate this, your attorney bill just dropped dramatically because you're presenting him with all the stuff that he spends two or three, $400 an hour researching.
Right.
And those are the benefits that AI can really help a company because you have your in-house people that know the business, know what to do, but they get bogged down. Now this expert assistant comes in and helps them be more efficient at their job. So
So it's
if you
kind of
think
like
of,
the new kid that shows up and all the other guys are looking at it. It's like, dude, relax. You're making us look bad. You're working way too hard. You're getting way too much done. Simmer down.
yep, yep, exactly.
Well, it's
You're
been a
muted,
pleasure.
Cody.
I appreciate the insight, and I like to apply stuff to, like I'm an insurance consumer. I know what I want a claim to look like. I know what outsourcing feels like. I think it's the lazy way. You have a pain point, so you're thinking somebody else is going to do it better. Well, they have a hard time keeping employees just like you do, right? And turnover, and then when they make a mistake, it's still on you, right? If they file taxes inappropriately or issue it wrong, then you got to live with it, and you didn't do it, and it's harder to fix in my mind. So I'm a in-house kind of guy, and I'm sure there's exceptions to the rule where something can be be outsourced and it works, but I'm a non-believer.
Yep. Well, if you look at the company, and if I gave you a list of hiring an in-house attorney, hiring an in-house developer, hiring a database administrator, hiring a programmer, and all these things, and you looked at your cost to bring those people on to solve problems, you would go, no way. I'm not spending $1 million more a year on all these salaries. But if I say you bring in one person and that person brings in 12 people that work for free 24/7, that's a pretty good financial decision when the bottom line is out there. So that's what big corporations need to understand, is that they're bringing in a team of experts that work when they want and work 24/7 and never take breaks to solve problems, to make the company more efficient and better at generating revenue and doing the job that the company does. So that's kind of the way I like to explain to people. It's not about getting replacement for employees. If the employee ain't doing the job, well, then they should be worried. But if they're doing the job at the best of their ability, AI is just going to help them do it even better. So that's the route I like to go, and that's the way I'll present it to whoever asks me those questions. So good.
Well,
And then when we just get off, just make sure you all keep your apps open so we can download through.
so that means you learned that on the last one that you didn't
No, it download through. Sometimes people sign off, and I gotta call them again to sign back on. But we're good. We're good. Everything worked great.
Well, I
Okay.
appreciate you, Chris.
Yeah.
Good
No,
to talk to you and have you share your ideas, and hopefully we can get a project going on this first step
yeah.
and grow from there.
Well, like I said, I appreciate, I've been in the boating, the racing industry since I was a kid. I raced jet skis for Sea-Doo, and I did all that stuff. And what X does for just that industry alone is remarkable, and I want to see that continue on in the future. And if business is what supports X ability to support motorsports, then I want to be a part of making sure that X is around for a very long time and can support it. And if I can have a little part in that, it makes me feel good. So
So, do you know this guy who runs IHRA now? He was jet ski
yep.
guy. Yeah.
So when I was a kid, me and him raced, not necessarily against each other, but we were in the same demographic, the same racing class, if you would say. So yeah, Dustin Farthing.
I mean, I've never met him. I hope he's the right guy to keep it. It sounds like IHRA's maybe lost their. I mean, they're still going to go forward, but they're definitely changing some stuff on a weekly basis.
It is a little hard to keep up with the changes that are happening with IHRA, and I think bringing on Dustin is a great idea, because he's been in the industry for a long time, not necessarily maybe powerboat racing, but in the water sport racing industry. So do I think that there's people better qualified? Probably, but when you have that lifelong experience, you got to see problems, and you're going to have solutions in your mind.
Well, and you
So
have to have people who want to do it too. So if
yeah.
he's a good guy and he wants to do it, been racing, we're writing more motocross tracks, and
Hmm.
had a call yesterday with Potts Racing and their motorcycle. I think they're Suzuki factory sponsored, and they do 24 events a year and 6 overseas, and they can't get insurance, right?
Hmm.
I think they're husband and wife. I was on a call with them yesterday, and all their pain points, we're like the perfect match, really, because they've been, I think they said they've been sponsoring and racing and holding motocross tracks, whatever, for since they were 22, and they look close to my age, maybe younger. But you can tell that they're like the guys I insure in the helicopter ski business for 35 years and the rafting business, and they live in the real world. They want real people, and they're frustrated. Most of the motocross tracks are in trouble right now. The teams and the events. They got Makita as a sponsor, and I think, and they test parts and stuff, and there's all kinds of things that normal insurance doesn't cover. And what they need is somebody who's like, we're going to cover you. Just you got to tell me about it. You're doing foreign events, Australia, that we can cover it. But if you hide it from me, I can't cover it. And that's the problem. Is Bob Burnquist, the skateboarder, when I insured his biggest skateboard ramp in his backyard, he wouldn't tell insurance people he had it. And I said, well, why wouldn't you tell them? He said, because they won't write me.
Yeah.
And I go, so it's like you're a smoker buying life insurance. And it's like, yeah, I don't smoke. Right?
Yeah.
That's like, to me, I can't believe that you would pay for something and lie to get it, because that's like disaster, in the making. So anyway,
Well, it's kind of funny you say that, because it's like the running joke of, you got a 42 fountain with 1350s in it, but it only does 65 miles an hour.
Right.
Because that's the limit for your local insurance to cover it, so you can get the loan on the boat or whatever.
Right.
When they know that that's very opposite. So,
and the key is, like Tyler Miller, we do his new MTI with, I don't know how many engines it's got on it, but it's the person, business that you're insuring, and who is that? That's the relationship, and that's what insurance used to be. Your local State Farm agent and the local guys. That's how Warren Buffett started, selling door to door. He knew his clients, and you can't make it just a paper machine where you're not having a relationship, because you're going to have to show up in court, which that's the biggest disappointment to me. Nobody wants to show up. We got this other guy who's you know who it is. He's the guy in Europe who said he referred the boat guy to us, and now the boat guy's a crook. And the stories get worse and worse over the whole deal. But real people don't do that stuff, and so we have to deal with real people. And we're glad you're on our team. So we look forward to doing step one of our first AI project.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm excited.